All right. Hello, everybody. I see a few people still joining, but that's okay. It's 4:01 and we're ready to get this show rolling. So thanks, clients, for taking the time to join Bold and Active's webinar on JV operations and compliance. This webinar is going to be Gabe will be walking through all of the content. Kevin will be available as well. Right now, we have all participants muted and video off, and you should be able to access the chat. So if there are questions that pop up, please feel free to send the chat, and then I will come on at the end and we can do a little Q&A for Gabe and Kevin. All materials, this slide deck, as well as the two additional marketing materials we've worked on, is the JV playbook and a first RFP explainer document. That will be sent out after this meeting for you guys as well. So with that, I am going to turn it on over to Gabe.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's probably good your cameras are off, so in case I put you to sleep, I won't even know it. So thanks for everybody for joining us. One of the things that we've talked about the last couple of years, as everyone on this call knows, is building, strategic partnerships for U.S. clients, building JV partnerships that can help accelerate your growth in the program. And we'd like to help facilitate that and work with you on those things. So this is really about that process, what goes into JVs, why we do them, and really kind of how we can help support and what we do from our side on it. So we're going to go through, why JVs matter, go, no-go decision framework, what kind of factors are involved from an active bonding perspective. We'll go through the marketing fee structure, how those are applied to the joint venture. The tracking and our role as Bold as the JV materializes and gets projects. And then the first RFP operations, that's a key component of this discussion, is what happens when the first RFP comes in for this joint venture. And then we'll open it up for questions on that. And there will probably be several questions. And so feel free to ask those in the chat. And you'll get a copy of this as well as the JV playbook. So even if you don't get a question answered today or something else pops up later on, you'll have that information. You can reach out to us and we can help you with that. So go ahead, Amanda. Yeah, why JVs matter. Bold's role in facilitating this. So, I want to talk about, on the outset, like why JVs matter. JVs matter for a number of reasons, but off the top, one reason is to, help you break into a market that maybe a graduated 8A is really skilled in and has done a ton of work there, and they want to partner with you to get work. It can also help if there's a specialty contractor that you want to work with, or is reaching out to find a project that, or is aware of a project they want to work on, and they want to joint venture with you. So there's a ton of them. We've talked a lot about that, but from a BD strategy perspective, we collaborate with the members of the JVU and your JV partners, really to determine whether the JV partner or we as Bold will do the marketing on that. Sometimes there'll be a joint venture partner of yours that is really well tuned with the government in a certain area of the country, and really you're forming that joint venture because they have a relationship somewhere, and they're going to be doing a lot of that marketing on your behalf. And Bold, we wouldn't necessarily step in on that. It's either a project focused JV or just a specific agency or area that if we stepped in and started marketing there, it might cause some confusion. So there are cases that the JV partner would be managing the marketing for that. But there's also times where our team would be out marketing for that joint venture. So each time a joint venture is formed on the outset, we'll have those conversations with everybody involved to make sure it's clear who's doing what, and that our team understands where they should be marketing, who they should be talking to, et cetera. So we'll develop a shared opportunity tracker, obviously, to provide like visibility to projects, alignment on these opportunities. That's something that's very important so we don't, again, trip over each other as we're out marketing. Yeah, there's a conflict of interest note here. Obviously, for existing relationships, we're going to pay very careful attention to any potential conflicts of interest there. Again, we don't want to confuse the government. We don't want to step on the toes of the joint venture, you and your partner. So we're very clear about that up front, set some ground rules, some boundaries on that. Obviously, we want this to be a positive experience for everyone, and any confusion would be unfortunate. We want to cause any of that. And then from a long-term market perspective, we can help identify longer-term markets to pursue, timelines for when the JV should begin marketing or preparing. If potentially you would need to form a second joint venture, it's successful, you're coming up on your 2-year mark as a joint venture, you decide, hey, we want to keep this going, some longer term markets that we can support you with and talk through that. Where else can you go in the country or within a particular agency? So, Kevin, anything further on that from you?
The other thing I'd add is, please keep in mind these documents that we're sharing with you, I'll call these living documents. We're going to, in discussions with all of you and experiences with all of you, not only to date, but in the future, I'm sure we're going to be adding some salient points. There's going to be certain aspects of joint ventures between JV partners that are going to be unique to that specific joint venture, maybe based on the market, maybe based on other unanticipated factors or variables that may not be contained in here. So this is the start. We want to get it out there. We want everybody to be at least guided by this, but it's going to change. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure that it's giving our clients and their JV partners an advantage and a step up in being organized and putting them together for the right reasons, and especially making sure that both entities we're managing expectations. That's probably the biggest thing. And so anyway, that was really it. Looking forward to hearing responses later.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, no-go decision framework. Like, how do we look at an opportunity and say, hey, what's a good one and what's not a great one? So it's really from an active bonding risk perspective that we look at these 5 categories. Geographically, obviously that's important. What's the subcontractor base? Are you and your JV partner familiar with subs? Is our team familiar with that? To make sure we have the right team, especially in a specialty construction environment. Availability of management personnel. Do you have one or multiple folks that are available to manage this particular project? Investments required to get after this work. And then bona fide office considerations. It's been hard to get clarification from SBA about bona fide offices for joint ventures. We're still working through that. So as we get clarity, we'll share that. But that is a consideration geographically for the joint ventures. Then there's a scope alignment. Is it the type of work that the JV was put together for? And we'll talk about this a little later on, as you're talking to this JV partner, about why you're putting together this joint venture. It's not to chase anything and everything, and maybe somebody approaches you with a job that doesn't make a ton of sense for the joint venture team, something that should be considered. Past performance that would support the scope. Compliance requirements for each JV partner. We'll get into that a little bit later, but as you know, from a limitations on subcontracting perspective, the 8A, the majority member of the joint venture, has to do at least 40% of any work that is self-performed by the joint venture on these construction projects. So that's something that we'll have to take into consideration. And then a bonding scope, boundary limitations, anything that active would say, hey, that's something we should be concerned with and talk about. So contract size, past performance by contract value. Is is, the size of the project. And then obviously the bonding per project and the aggregate bonding limitations. And one key is also the impact on non-JV workload. What kind of work do you have going elsewhere in the country, independently or with other joint ventures? And is that going to be a negative impact on the bonding capacity for the workload you currently have? Also for the partner as well, like what personnel does your JV partner have available, cash availability on project support, and then, bonding aggregate capacity, obviously for the partner, can the partner support in that bonding effort from their side of that contract? And then compliance, we talked about a little bit already, limitations on subcontracting, ostensible subcontracting rules, and then the SBA, the profit payout regulations and compliance. So obviously, there's a lot of things to look at from a compliance perspective, NAICS codes, and then who's doing what within the project between the JV partners there. Here to support that, here to support you with that and walk through that with you and say, hey, is this the type of project that the team can stay within SBA compliance and still execute effectively for the agency? But Kevin, anything to add there?
I'll just add that a lot of times during this part of the process, we kind of have two focuses. One focus is the target market. So typically you're getting together for a reason, like we talked about. It's going to be a specific project, a specific market or agency. But it's also important to define the boundaries, because there's going to be opportunities. You have a good relationship. There's going to be opportunities that may fall outside of that initial target market, and you don't want to have any assumptions. So I just encourage everybody to take the time to go through this list. You're going to add some things likely to this list, but really hit all of these different areas that Gabe just went through with your prospective joint venture partner, because that's really going to help define the future investment and time and money and effort in not only putting together a joint venture, but making sure that it's successful. I mean, you don't want to go through all of this and not pick up any projects, or even worse, pick up projects, make promises, and then can't fulfill them because it's a compliance issue or something like that. So just encourage you, kind of twofold. There should be a really nice, focused, sharply defined target market, but then also define some boundaries, like Gabe was saying, certain capabilities, certain geographic areas that maybe over time you'd be more comfortable working in, or have some other resources that may be available to the JV. So just keep those in mind, but please take the time and the effort to go through all of this up front, because it'll save everybody a lot of time and ensure the success of the JV that you're putting the investment in.
Thanks. Thanks, Kevin. Go ahead, man. Thanks. Yeah, let's talk marketing fee structure, everyone's favorite topic. Go ahead, Amanda. So a couple of scenarios that we've walked through the last couple of years with these joint ventures. And they're two different scenarios for who pays what, as we're saying here. Scenario A is a Bold generated opportunity. Who brought it in? A Bold BD rep brought a project to the table for this joint venture. Is that an agency that was marketed by Bold? And was the Bold relationship used to get that? Pretty straightforward. Our team brings a project, brings an agency, brings a relationship that neither partner was, that your JV partner was not involved in. That's a 100% marketing services fee for that entire contract. So the fee would be applied to you as the client. So both JV partners would be responsible. However, we would only be invoicing the Bold client, and that would be incumbent upon you to collect your JV partners' portions. We are, as a clarification, we are not in contract with your JV partners. You are, and so we don't dictate how you run that. We just will bill you as we would any regular marketing services fee on that contract. And then again, incumbent upon you to speak to your JV partner about paying their portion of that. Scenario B is a JV partner generated, where your partner brings a project or an agency to the table, and a project is awarded, that marketing services fee would only be attributable to you as the BOLD client and not to that joint venture partner of yours. So again, this is a project that the JV partner, you put it together with them, they are out and they get a project sole sourced, and it gets awarded. The marketing fee goes to you as the majority member, but not to that partner of yours in the joint venture. So pretty clear. Again, you can read through this and we can answer questions later, but there's BOLD generated and the partner generated, and we'll work through each of those contracts, and the discussion will be had, guys, ahead of time on each project. And we want to make sure it's clear ahead of time. We don't want to get in a scenario where there's a discussion on the back end where, and I don't want to say an argument, but an argument about who's responsible, who's paying, all those kinds of things. So one of the things we'll like to do going forward is when a project is brought to the table, that it's clear who's responsible for marketing fee, how it gets paid, who's paying it. That way there's nothing unclear upon award and upon invoice of those marketing fees. So Kevin, anything else there?
Just to clarify that the fee for scenario B is just on the client's part. So if the client is 51% owner of the JV, the marketing fee is only for their portion of it, not for the whole project, but just the 51. So in alignment with our current marketing program and how we assign fees, it's just, again, a percentage of the gross margin contribution to you from the joint venture. And that would only include 51% of the joint venture if you're the managing member. So just to make sure I made that clarification. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I didn't mention that. I appreciate that that clarification. The 51% for the managing member. Okay, Amanda, next.
Perfect.
Please.
And I'm just popping on to remind individuals to use the chat for your questions for right now. We will either answer them in the chat or we'll answer here at the end, but please write down your questions so that way we make sure that we're crystal clear, and to make an FAQ section for future reference. Thank you.
All right, so tracking and our role as the projects are ongoing. Go ahead, Amanda. All right, so something that is important as a reminder for you and your JV partner is financial tracking and support on KPIs. So one of the things that we can support and help with here is, determining which partner, manages AP/AR, counting WIPs, banking, identify the monthly reporting requirements, typically done really through the managing member for the most part. We'll establish the clear reporting deadlines. The deadlines will mirror what you have now as a client outside of a joint venture, the reporting deadlines for WIPs. We can support the discussion on timing and conditions for distribution, and then talk about, setting a minimum cash reserve requirement for JV overhead. Just as a reminder, these are items that we will support you with, help you with, guide you with, but ultimately these are decisions that you're making. So we're not going to obviously we'll not force you to make a decision on which partner manages what. We will guide you and let you know what our experience has been, but ultimately that's a decision that you will make. Quarterly reviews, we'll refine a go and no-go process based on capability or resource changes. We'll review and update all the JV marketing materials. We like to go every quarter. If we're going to add a new project to a one sheet, something new on a project profile, we like to do that on a quarterly basis. So we will review that. And then meeting with the JV to ensure the working relationship stays healthy. Obviously, that's something that we value. We want to make sure that things are going well within the relationship. And again, we meet, obviously, with joint ventures, we meet every, other week. Sometimes it's monthly, but we're meeting more than quarterly, but definitely the focus of quarterly meetings. Obviously reviewing active and future projects for ongoing JV compliance. And then here, yeah, man, I put this in here, participating in these bi-weekly or monthly operations meetings. And then making sure that both ops managers and PMs that are leased are copied on project discussions. So making sure that the communication is there and is valuable for everyone. And again, we're here to support that. We're here to help you along the way with the JV. We require similar things, obviously, when it comes to active bonding reporting that we would outside of, a JV as you as a standalone client. So it'll mirror that. There'll just be some deeper conversations about how do you communicate that with your JV partner and how do we facilitate some of those things. And again, and we're going to get into like the first project discussion, but sometimes, as some of you have with your JV partners now, might take a little bit of time to get all this kind of sorted out. There's some good and bad. You figure that out along the way in a project, but we want to know ahead of time at least the framework of this. Like, hey, let's put these things in place, and we have to adjust along the way. Really getting a lot of this figured out, ahead of time. Kevin, anything there?
I'm fine right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, first RFP, the exciting part. Go ahead, Amanda. So this is a discussion about financial structure and reporting that items you would want to establish in your operating agreement with your JV partner. Accounting, banking, determine obviously which partner manages APAR, reporting, banking, all those things. Identify dollar thresholds that require both partners to approve. Obviously, most of you on this call have gone through this with your JV partner, putting banking and accounting together, but it's a good reminder as you're putting the JV operating agreement together that these things are established. And then the monthly reporting, again, accounting WIPs are due by the 25th of the next month by whoever is doing the accounting, and the project WIPs, they're due monthly by the project manager. Again, it mirrors what you're doing now, just within the JV structure, something that you would be working with your JV partner on, so that they understand the reporting deadlines that we have. Again, the distributions and cash reserves, reviewing timing and conditions for these distributions. Obviously, the cash reserves have to adequately support the operations, the overhead, and the future cash call needs for this joint venture. So something that's, as you're discussing forming a joint venture with a partner, that these things can be discussed ahead of time. Determining appropriate reimbursement for overhead, G&A, provided by a JV partner to the JV, accounting, estimating, etc. Again, these are, you might get into a relationship in a JV with a company that does things a little bit differently than maybe you do from how they look at overhead and G&A and what they do. It's something that you together need to work on and make sure there's an understanding there. Everyone's getting along there, and really it's clear communication and proper understanding there. And then we talk about self-performance compliance. We mentioned this earlier, but confirming that the managing member, that would be you, and for the most part, you're doing minimum 40% self-performance as required under the NAICS code. Obviously, the FAR calls it limitations on subcontracting now, but for the purpose of this call, if it's a construction NAICS code 236220, that's a 85% limitation on subcontracting. So that would be a 15% self-performance. You as the managing member would have to perform 40% of that 15%. And that one's usually pretty easy to follow. When you get into your specialty NAICS that are your 75% limitations, just remember, and a reminder that that 25%, your team has to do 40% of that self-performance on that 25%. So there's some dollars in there that you need to look at and take concern with and make sure it's working out there from a compliance self-performance perspective. So again, oftentimes, and those of you that work with our estimating team, Craig will ask you that on a regular basis when a project comes. One of the first questions is, what's the NAICS and how are we going to manage limitations on subcontracting? So again, part of our services to you and our benefit is helping with compliance. So, you know, we have projects ongoing now with JVs that we're working through this. So it's a case by case basis, right, on these projects, but just as a reminder on those limitations on subcontracting. Kevin, anything to add?
That's pretty comprehensive, but again, a lot of this is a result of, I think, learning how to manage expectations when the jobs actually come out. We've experienced a couple of you on here are in active joint ventures right now that are performing projects with your joint venture partners and have had to work your way through some of these scenarios that were, I'll say, at times unanticipated. So what we're attempting to do here is at least when you sit down with that JV partner and that first RFP comes in, these are at least 5 main categories of discussions that you should have. Doesn't mean it's all inclusive of everything, but we try to, like I said, put everything down here. These are subjects that we've experienced already in joint ventures. There's undoubtedly going to be other things that we're going to add to this, but at least this is a guideline. So when you sit down and that first RFP comes in and you're on the clock for the estimate and everything else, that you get right to brass tacks when it comes to these these 5 different areas that are very important. Because at that point, like I said, clock's ticking. You got to get an estimate in. You've got to determine between you who, general conditions, who's going to do what. And a lot of times it's the timing of this based on what resources are available for you, your JV partner, even Bold, if you're potentially leasing people from Bold, making sure that the resources are there. Also with compliance, timing matters as well. Your JV partner can PM projects, even if you're the managing member from a control perspective, but they can't, manage all the projects. But there's ways to structure some of those individual projects to make sure that you stay within compliance from a control standpoint, but you're able to maximize the resource opportunities. So again, this is just a guideline. We're going to be there working alongside you to help you, go through these discussions with your JV partner, because it's going to have to happen pretty quickly. And we just want to get ahead of it with this presentation. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. We can go to the next slide there, Amanda. All right, project communication for JV ops. So if there's an issue there, a letter of concern, operation issues, compliance concerns, that's an executive level JV partner contact point for those concerns. For our BDMs on our side, we appreciate a courtesy copy on communication things, pipeline leads for the JV, positive comments, CPARs, our BD staff, that's a benefit for them. Just making sure that there's communication. One of the things that, Kevin alluded to as we've been working through some of these JV opportunities, it comes down to communication. A lot of things that are bumps in the road would be solved by better communication and our side as well. So, the operations management for the JV can deal with subcontract issues, personnel needs, scope and equipment challenges. When it comes to bonding and risk issues, obviously that's an active bonding aspect there from our active bonding operations management. So they would get involved in any sub bond claims, sub claims, risk management, those kinds of things. And then, Bold lease personnel management. Obviously, if there's, performance concerns or anything with Bold lease personnel, that's something you can bring to our attention from an operations perspective. And then obviously, feedback on government perception, of our Bold staff. But I think overall, the idea is to communicate, I would say over communicate in these instances I think that with everything going on, as busy as we are, communication is going to be key for all of these things. And this is a guide, obviously, who to contact for X, Y, and Z. But if you can't get a hold of one person, there's several of us from management level that can assist with these kinds of any issues that would pop up. So, Kevin, anything additional there?
Nothing additional. Just want to re-emphasize again, this is just a guideline. Okay, this is not a directive on exactly who to contact when. This is just a guideline on typically who should be brought into certain situations. Clearly, you're going to sit down with your JV partner, and you may adjust communication levels and who gets who is CC'd on certain types of communication based on what you both feel is best for your relationship. That's totally fine. This is just, again, I believe these are subjects that should be discussed when you're talking about that first project, because communication, as Gabe said, and we all know this, communication really is king. Decisions have to be made quickly. Got to make sure that all the proper people are brought into the decision process at the right time so that you can maximize the best answer. Could be a challenge, it could be a good opportunity, but we just want to make sure that everybody that's supposed to be communicated with and we've run into this already on a couple of projects, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for everybody to kind of understand the roles and responsibilities. So this is really just to have in here as a placeholder so that when you sit down and run through this with your JV partner on that first project, that you come to an agreement as such in the beginning. You may tweak it also during the relationship. Realize, hey, you know what? I can make it easier and have a single point of contact for this particular issue or whatever. But again, just let you know this is a guideline, not a directive. And hopefully this is helpful for you.
Thanks, Kevin. Operations expectations from active bonding perspective. Obviously, Active Bonding is a separately operated company from Bold. So bonding and surety services described here, they're independent of Bold Concepts Advisory. They're obviously same ownership, same leadership, but two different companies. So a couple of things that we need that, from an active bonding perspective is collecting information about your partner's bonding broker and surety information to facilitate the bonding agreement for a project. So your JV partner will be responsible for bonding their portion of the project, and we would just need that information, their broker and surety, so we can facilitate that agreement for the project. And again, that means number two here, that both JV's partners need to participate in these biweekly or monthly ops meetings as required by active bonding to review project status and pipeline. Obviously, there's information that the entire group needs to hear, this JV partnership needs to be aware of and talk through. So both partners should be participating there. Quick whips required by the managing partner, which is you as our client. And again, submitted to the operations manager monthly by the 25th. And I know I keep repeating it, but I think it's worth it. This isn't any different than you're doing now with your projects alone. It's just you're going to add a JV partner in, the same process is going to be required. So just your JV partner knowing that, but also you understanding we're going to have the same expectations when you get a project with one of your JV partners. And then bonding or risk management issues that we talked about before, sub bond calls, claims, any risk strategy, something that pops up, just routing it to our active bonding ops management. And each, your ops manager that you work with for your individual projects, there's a client there, they will be your ops manager as well for those joint ventures. So that same person that you deal with on the ops side individually, you'll get that with the JV partnership as well. So, but again, this is really from an active bonding, the what you're getting from active bonding services, what you're paying for and your fees for active bonding, you get this service from us, but also some of the requirements we need to make sure everything's going smoothly with the project from a risk perspective. And of course, that's what we're here for. Partly is to help manage the risk there, understand that construction has risk. We're trying to mitigate that. And again, that's why we're collecting this information and why we're asking for it on a monthly basis by a certain time, and why we're asking you to meet on a regular basis. We don't like surprises. We want to hear something's going wrong with a project, as rare as it may be. We don't want to hear something negative on it out of the blue. We want to make sure, hey, if something's going awry, that we can get it back on course so the risk level remains low. But yeah, Kevin, anything from you on that?
I think it's pretty straightforward because it really reflects and aligns with the individual communication when it comes to active bonding, but it's the same people. So yeah, not really any comments there. But please put questions in there. Again, the questions that have already been put in will be answered, promise, in writing as well as individually if we want to talk about them. Not a problem.
Thanks, Kevin. All right. Q&A, drop your questions in the chat. I'm going to open the chat here. Amanda, do you want to go from, if you want to ask them, and then we can address the questions, Kevin or I?
Yes, we'll do our best to address the questions. If something is very specific to, your unique organization and your unique JVs, this is just the kickoff call, right? Like, this is just a webinar training to get everybody aligned. And then, of course, we're happy to answer your personal or individual questions at a later date. Kevin and Gabe will set those up for you as well. But so if a JV partner brings the deal, the Bold client, there's some questions around the JV partner bringing the deal. If we could just go through that again as to why Bold would receive a fee, why the Bold client would receive a fee if the JV partner is bringing the deal.
Yeah. That's a fair question, and I'll jump in, and Kevin obviously can answer as well. From our perspective, because you're a client of Bold's, and if we facilitate a joint venture for you, like we're bringing a joint venture to you and saying, hey, let's put this together. Here's why, here's projects, here's agency, here's whatever it may be to help your business grow and get additional work. We like to call that facilitation. We're facilitating that joint venture for you. And so even if a deal is brought by that partner of yours, we see it as us facilitating that opportunity for you. Otherwise, that opportunity may not have been brought to you. So we see it as an opportunity for you to grow and get additional business, get involved in an agency that you haven't been involved with before. A litany of reasons for why we would say, hey, we help facilitate it. We help get you going in X, Y, and Z areas. And that's why we would put the fee there on your side of that, on the 51% of that project. So Kevin, I don't know if there's anything else, clarification you want to add to that?
I mean, basically, this is, I would just, again, we view a relationship with a JV partner the same as facilitating a relationship with a government agency. I mean, to me, I don't really see the difference if we introduce a client to a potential customer for that client, whether that customer is a facilitation of a joint venture. And by making that introduction, just like making that introduction with the chief of contracting or the head of engineering or whomever that gets you work at a government agency, if we're introducing you to somebody that is going to bring gross margin into your company, which is, that contribution, that profit from that relationship, we would expect to get paid from that, but only on the gross profit that you get from that. Okay, that's why it's only on the 51%, which would be what you get. If that arrangement doesn't make sense, you don't have to get involved with joint ventures we bring, but absolutely the bringing a relationship to you is just like bringing a government relationship to you or a a prime contractor relationship if you're a subcontractor. By facilitating that relationship, that takes time, that takes investment, that takes money, that takes effort from our BD staff, and we view that we should be compensated for that. And the point of many of the JV partners is they are leveraging current relationships that they have. They're going to be bringing projects to you. That's the whole point. That's the value of introducing you in that relationship to that entity. And so just like introducing you to the right decision maker at a government agency is going to bring you work, we would expect to get compensated. So we view that exactly the same way. I have no problem sitting down and talking through that and discussing that, but that's why we feel that way. But like I said, I can talk to y'all individually. It's not a problem.
Thanks, Kevin and Gabe. Those were great answers. I'm sure we'll have a lot more of those. I still am reading through some of these questions, but I also do want to make sure I cover kind of additional topics. So one of the other questions, though, was in regards to the joint ventures. And if an existing client or an existing JV partner creates the opportunity but uses its own bonding, does Bold expect a fee? I'm not sure if I understand what MPP JV is, but I would imagine that
if there's just real quick, if there's an existing, when we meet, let's say you're a client and you had an existing joint venture relationship, we would not expect anything from that, because number one, we didn't introduce you to that JV partner. That JV partner already existed in a relationship with you. The only time that an existing joint venture relationship, I would expect there would be any compensation, is if we marketed that JV with your permission to a federal customer or some other customer, and the JV received a project from that, then yes, just like scenario A, we would expect to get paid for that. That's what business development does. But no, just because when you're in an existing relationship that we did not facilitate, then I would not expect that.
Great.
That answers that question, hopefully.
I think that's good. With 2 minutes to go, because this webinar is only supposed to run about 45 minutes, and I want to be cognizant of everyone's time, I do think it's important too that we clarify what services, what's required of active bonding, which reports due by the 25th. There's the accounting whip versus the quick whip, and just making sure that we're being extra clear in the delineation of services between Bold and active. If Gabe, you want to answer that one?
I'm guessing, are you talking specifically about, I see here the active bonding. Yes. Are you saying marketing specific active bonding reporting? Yeah, there's your active bonding reports that go on a monthly basis from that we've required, since you signed the CREA. There are marketing specific things that are due to Derek as well from a marketing fee perspective. We have the attachment A that all of you are familiar with. So it's a process that we go through with you on a quarterly basis, and we review the numbers. We look at the 3-month look ahead on expected billings or anticipated billings, and we build that marketing fee off that, and then it's part of the attachment A. So, man, is that kind of what you were looking for?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, 1 minute to go. I think with this, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I know that there are some additional questions, but I think this is still a great spot to stop for us. So again, the game plan for everyone here is, first and foremost, thank you for joining. We appreciate the comments and the questions in the chat. I will type everything up along with answers from Kevin and Gabe, and I will include those with the recording of this webinar, as well as the materials that we've discussed. But if you still have more information, you can reach out to Kevin and Gabe, and we'd be happy to get those information, because I'm sure that if you have them, other people will have them. So we appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Take care and look forward to further discussions as well. Bye-bye.